You're going to bring us home.
Well, thank you, Nell. Appreciate it. Appreciate NAFA. Appreciate all of you for joining us today. Thank you to the prior speakers. I'll try to wrap us up here, bring us home. We have just a few slides. All of this information, of course, will be available to you afterwards. So thank you for being with us. When we think of the markets, business aviation has gone through, of course, a fairly significant shock, although the shock that we have felt as an industry, I would say, is less severe than many other sectors. So, let's remind ourselves of this. This is a good industry. Let's look really right now, though, at our owner-operator community. We have an ongoing survey of owners and operators. This is a worldwide data point I'll share with you here. We essentially asked them, where are we in this current business cycle? Now, clearly, we're coming from different places. Here in the US, where 60% or so of our fleet, of the business aviation fleet, resides or is based. A lot of these data are going to be influenced by the mood, if you like, of the US market in particular. So think of a pendulum. A pendulum swings back and forth like our economy, like our industries, for example. Right now, and this is a really very fresh data. This comes from our Q4 survey. It was in the field just around the end of last year. We see that the pendulum has swung, and around half of the respondents to the survey that we have in the field are saying, you know what, we're through the worst of this business cycle. Now, of course, that's a big swing from where it was just a little while ago. So Tracy, if you want to switch us to the next slide, give you a little history here. Now, this is data going back, I think, till 2012 or so. And the height of this bar here reflects essentially the optimism of the market. So the higher the bar, the more optimistic the owner-operator community is feeling. This, as a reminder, is our voices of customer. We're trying to understand, obviously, the data, but behind the data, the mood of the owner-operator community. Look at where this chart has been. If you go back to Q2 of 2018, not that long ago, a couple of years back, this is the highest metric we've ever measured. It's plus 100 to minus 100 on this scale. Okay, so the higher the bar, the more optimistic. 55% net optimism back in middle of 18. We dropped to minus 43 just a couple of quarters ago, back in Q2 of 2020, at the lowest point we've ever measured. Where are we now? 27, positive 27 in Q4. And I just looked at the data points. We have a survey in the field right now. We're hovering around plus 31 to 35, depending on what day I look at. So the good news is the mood of the market is improving. Next slide, Tracy. Again, let's put a little bit more detail on this. Same type of data. Now we're looking at a line chart, and we break it out by geography. So we know where the aircraft and the owners and operators are based, and we just share this kind of level of detail with you. We monitor this every quarter, of course, but even more frequently than that on a real-time basis. So what's going on here? All of the regions seem to be improving, except a step back in Europe, and you can think of what's going on there. Obviously, second and third wave concerns regarding coronavirus and other factors at play. The split out of course, the UK from the continent. Next slide. One of the things that's intriguing to us is in our surveys, we can actually understand, if you like, the headset or the mood of the person who sits in the back of the aircraft. What we mean here is when they approach a business aircraft, they turn right, not left. Now, the interesting thing is when we ask people what is the feeling or what is the concern that people have as they step into the back of the aircraft, these are the things that are coming out in our surveys. We've run this a few quarters now in a row. And I would say in Q2 of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic's worst moments, the concerns were absolutely regarding things like the cleanliness of the aircraft and the training level and sensitivity of the crews. Now we're seeing a little bit of a different shift, and I think you can see it there on the chart. We're back to economics 101, which has always driven our industry. It's, it's the cost of the flight. That's a very interesting thing that's shifted. This is the most important concern that they have, the cost of the flight. Now, some of them may be chartering, some of them, it may be their own aircraft, but back to the reality of, this is a fairly expensive way of moving my team or my family around. I may be doing it more often now than I was, but, it's my primary concern. So as an industry, when we think of absorbing all this excess capacity that is in the system right now, the average utilization per aircraft dropped probably 30 points last year. We have a lot of absorption to do there. In fact, before we have to look to the OEMs to produce some new airplanes. So we'll talk around that in a minute. Okay, next slide, Tracy. Now, here's really the OEM picture, if you like. This is the order backlogs as reported in the various investor reports and or filings and press conferences, press releases. We don't have the full picture yet even on 2020, but based on the first big three of the OEs that are reporting, the overall backlog dropped. It looks like around 8 percentage points on a value basis. So the value of airplane orders sitting in backlog. Now, the good news is we had a pretty good 2019, and you can see it here on this chart where the actual backlogs for the first time in maybe 10, 11 years actually improved. So the backlogs give OEMs the confidence of, that they can set the production rates and there will be orders to be filled as those planes get ready and down the line. So most OEMs are sitting on around a year or so backlog. That's not the case in all cases. You have to really dissect this very carefully. But the good news is the backlogs are generally holding. Again, through the worst black swan event that I can think of in our industry in many, many, many years, we're actually holding fairly well. Next slide. Okay, there's something called book to bill. What is book to bill? It's an expression, but essentially a book to bill of one means that you're managing as an OEM your factory. So your factory, you're delivering an airplane and you're taking an order in to replace that delivery, meaning that your backlog, as we just described, is staying pretty stable. Now, the good news is in 2019, and you can see it here on this chart, the OEMs, the big ones anyway, moved to this point of performance where their book to bill was 1.0 or a little bit higher, meaning that backlogs in general were either staying stable or were actually improving a little bit, as we saw. Now, the beginning of this, the reporting season that we're seeing for the full year of 2020, we don't have all the picture yet. But the first three OEMs have reported, and you can see on the chart, we have already a divergence of performance. We'll see where this goes. Next slide. This is really the wrap up. As if you weren't on the GAMA press conference call, the General Aviation Manufacturers Association reports quarterly, but the big report that they put out just maybe a week ago or so told us where we really ended up. Down around 20% in terms of overall units of delivery for business jets. If you look at this also from a business turboprop point of view, also down around 20%. So where are we going to end up this year? That's really the realm of forecasters. We're saying, we've been pretty accurate on this. We're saying that we'll be up around 8% on the business jet side. That may go up a little bit more, but right now we're going to call it 8%. Pretty good performance in Q4 from the factories. A lot of rush, if you like, to get to the year end. And we saw some OEs deliver almost half of their, and in fact, in one case, over half of their total annual output in Q4. So it was a busy time. Q1 is going to be a little quieter for a lot of reasons. Not only did we, as an industry, empty the shelf in a little bit in terms of that new product, new asset. It's just, we need to reset and get our teams going again in terms of selling. So Q1, it'll look pretty slow when the numbers come through, but for the full year, we think we'll end up around 8%. I just have one more point to make, and I think as an industry, we need to keep these in mind. We've been through two significant cycles in our industry. We're coming out of this one, but 12 years ago, and looking at where we were 12 years ago as we went into the global financial crisis to today, in the US at least, the US business jet fleet is 29% larger than it was going into the right at the end of 08, into the end of 19. Our US economy grew by 22% over that time on a real basis, meaning that our fleet grew faster than the economy. That's a good, it's not multiples faster, but it was a good performance. And the other thing to look at is if you look at 09 and 2009, that first full year of the global financial crisis impact on our industry, utilization levels in the US for business jet cycles to where they were in 2020, essentially at par. So we've gone through all of this period of time, 12 years, with no flight increase, no flight activity increase when you look at that. So do we have lift coming this year? Yes. Do we have capacity to absorb that lift? Yes. So all of that drives us to be a little bit more muted than some might be saying in terms of where this is going to go this year for the OEMs. But it's a good industry. We're growing and we're recovering and servicing our customers. And that's it. Thanks.
Rollie, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing it all in, and kind of a nice wrap up. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our time. Tracy, do you want to take it from here? We will respond to a couple of questions that we've received during this. We'll get to you. We'll get you back a response from the panelists that you identified.
Hi, sure. Thank you, Nell. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time today. We appreciate the participation of Andrew, Dawn, Tony, and Rollie. This was a great presentation that was really rich with data, and that hopefully will be helpful to everyone who attended. Thank you to all the attendees who stayed with us for most of the time. You asked some great questions. You were engaged, and I really appreciate it. Our next webinar will be in April, and we're going to do a lender roundtable where we will dive in a little bit further to what happened in the lending side of aircraft in 2020. And in May, we will have our annual meeting online. We were supposed to have our annual conference, but with the global pandemic, we postponed that one more year. So we will do our annual meeting online. That will be a members only event, but that will be in May. And then in June, we will have a regulatory update. So we will forward all of that information. Also, we had a lot of questions about whether we would post these slides online because there's a lot of data in there. So we will record this webinar, we will post it online, and we will post these slides with the webinar so that they'll be easy to find and easy to access. So thank you all very much for coming and attending, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.